In my literacy backpack, I'm bringing second language acquisition skills and resources. The first steps to learning a new language is making sure that the student familiarizes with new letters and sounds or phonemes, as well as semantics and syntax. Another important part is culture, because language reflects culture. Most introductory textbooks, such as this one, include a lot of visuals, for example maps, verb conjugation charts, glossaries, and many more grammatical concept tables. Another important part of language acquisition is translation. As discussed in Big Ideas, it is important for language learners to learn in their L1 and experiment with dictionaries, hard copy or online, to see if direct translation is possible or not. Unfortunately, most of the times meaning gets lost in translation, and jokes or proverbs are not directly translatable. Once students feel more comfortable with vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, they can be introduced to more difficult literature. Literature is a vital part of culture, and presenting fictional and non-fictional pieces gives the reader a variety of perspectives. When I was learning Spanish, we read this book about missing and murdered women in Juarez, Mexico, and experienced a lot of insight on how life must be like in Juarez. The photos in the middle of the book enhanced the feeling of empathy and made the book more interesting. Lastly, I chose to put this fictional novel in my backpack because the author, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, was a legend and well known in the Spanish-speaking community who passed away recently. 100 Years of Solitude is something every Spanish speaker has heard of or read, and is therefore a big part of culture. Both fictional and non-fictional readings help building a tremendous amount of basic interpersonal communication skills, BICS, and cognitive academic language proficiency, CALP.
Literacy is commonly found in social studies through textbooks, encyclopedias, maps, and even fiction, so it's easy to see that social studies is rich in literacy content. Now, social studies content is divided up across the grades. In grade 9, students learn politics and law, grade 10, geography, grade 11, Canadian history, plus a variety of elective options in grade 12. Students need to engage and use social studies vocabulary to understand the content, but the content keeps changing. So the question is, how do we get students to understand and maintain their social studies vocabulary when the content keeps changing every year? A way of doing this is by bringing in social studies terms to everyday classroom life to help reinforce vocabulary. This can be easily adapted through classroom routines, having a word wall with key terms, have students read out loud so they're actually saying the word and not just reading it, and also creating concept maps that allow students to create a visual that defines the term, give characteristics of the term, and gives examples of the term. That's what's in my social studies backpack.
In my backpack, resources will be provided to assist students with understanding literacy in the visual arts content area. First off, visual art tools such as paint and brushes are used by artists as a way of telling their own story. Art history textbooks are used in visual arts classrooms to teach students about how various art styles were established and produced through different time periods for religion, architectural, and aesthetic purposes. A graphic novel is included to showcase how images are used to read a story in a linear sense, with further assistance being provided by the text. Like the graphic novel, comics are fun and engaging art forms that incorporate text to correlate and accompany the respected images. Principle and elements of design are included because they are important artistic terms used within the visual arts discipline area. Routines such as number 43 toss terms can be implemented in order to teach the principles and elements of design. Material instructions are important for students to read in order for them to know how to properly use the artistic materials they have been provided with. A program book has been included to indicate how professional artists must be able to write about and describe their work if the work is to be a part of an art show. A calligraphy set is included in my backpack as a way of indicating that writing styles are also considered a form of artistic expression. An art journal may be kept by a student as a way of telling their own personal story through imagery. Written commentary and notes can also be added. What I want to know about a literacy-rich learning environment in the visual arts classroom is how students can make connections to their everyday lives to the literacy strategies that were just provided.
The language demands of science. In addition to the demands of learning the new meanings of multiple words, students are required to engage in a range of cognitive processes characteristic of scientific inquiry. As emphasized in Big Ideas, These cognitive processes find expression in text structures, grammatical and disclosure patterns that are quite different from the way we use language in everyday interpersonal communication. Science is packed with specialized words invented for science. These vocabulary items are used to label, describe, and classify scientific phenomena and their attributes, as well as name scientific processes. Nominalization refers to the grammatical process whereby language elements, mostly verbs or adjectives, are transformed into abstract nouns. For example, in a unit on weather, the terms evaporation, condensation, and precipitation are introduced to elaborate on the big idea that water moves through a water cycle. Scientific language draws on multimodal representations, where language is used alongside and integrated with symbols, images, charts, graphs, and formulas. As they engage in scientific inquiry, students are frequently invited to generate questions, make predictions, formulate hypotheses, and generate explanations for their hypotheses or findings. Some literacy strategies that science teachers can use in their classrooms include using L1 to develop the language of science, building students' knowledge of scientific inquiry and terminology, focusing students' attention on linking words, big words for big minds, collecting word specimen in science, debates, readers' theater, vocabulary self-awareness. But what I want to know about building scientific literacy within my classroom would be how to get my students to use their L1 to make real-world connections and to use science in everyday life.